Hey everyone, welcome back to the MSP show here on Blog Talk Radio and on YouTube. My name is Stuart Crawford. It's my privilege to be your guest of honor every single week here, bringing some good quality stuff to the MSP community. Today I have my good friend, I call him Tuber, and don't ask me how we come up with that nickname because it's fun, but Chuck Lobert, Vision Computer Solutions out in Metro Detroit. First off, Chuck, before we get into any business, Wings playing, yes or no?
Are they playing? No.
Are they going to play?
Oh, I doubt it. I maybe without a crowd. I don't know. I'll be kind of surprised if they play this year.
If we thought back in that preseason game we went to last year,
yep,
thinking that the season would be cut short in March and there would be no contest for the Stanley Cup, I think we'd both say, we've been smoking something funny. But here we are, almost into June and no sign of Stanley Cup being awarded or even any other sport kicking off. Like we don't know if baseball's going to go or even we're going to get to see the Bills finally win the AFC East after your Patriots got rid of Tom and now Gronk are playing down here in Florida.
I know. I might have to change my team.
Well, there you go. We always welcome you to join Bill's Mafia. Anyway, Chuck, tell me a little about your background. How did you get started in the MSP community, and how did you end up joining the Vision team?
Yeah, so ultimately, I was 20 years old. I was engaged and figuring, it's time for me to get a real job now. I opened up a newspaper at the time. It takes you back a little bit. And was looking through the classifieds, and I saw get MCSE certified. So I went, that kind of sounds interesting. So I signed up for a class. I got A+ certified. I got MCSE certified. And then I started my first job. And, back then MSP wasn't a thing, but it was basically doing, what MSPs do today. We were providing support. We were installing networks and servers and all of that kind of stuff. And, I went from that job to another job doing the same type of thing. Ended up at a school district for 8 months. And at that school district down in Dearborn, Michigan, Vision Computer Solutions contracted a guy there for 4 hours a day, basically, to help them with network infrastructure upgrades and such. And so I worked along with him quite a bit. And the day came when he approached me and he said, "Hey, if you know of anybody, Vision's looking for somebody." And he was kind of standing behind my shoulder, and I typed on my computer, "Am I allowed to be interested in this?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. That's why I was telling you. If you are, I'll talk to my boss at the time and find out." And so they agreed to it, and that was 16 years ago in April, and that's when I started with Vision.
So it sounds like you and I have had similar paths. So you came from the technical world,
yep,
into marketing and sales. So tell me about that transition, because I know how mine was. I was a horrible tech, but I had enough to get by. And I had a natural gift to talk to people, so that's why I came into the sales role and eventually into marketing. But tell me what got you into? How did that transition go, and what got you interested in doing sales and marketing for an IT company?
Yeah, and I've always kind of, I guess, migrated towards that. Back in high school, my job, I worked for Play It Again Sports, doing retail sales. I did the Cutco thing for a little bit. I did the Kirby thing for a little bit. Got some really good sales training through them. But ultimately, from probably 20 years old on, I was all technical. And then, when I started with Vision, I started as a tech, and then I took over projects. I was doing all of our projects, all of our assessments, and then I kind of just naturally migrated into like a more of a sales tech support type person. I used to say I was the technical color commentary for sales meetings. So I would be there to talk about why we were recommending something, the advantages of it, explain the technical pieces of it, and all of that kind of stuff. And then my boss at the time, the VP of sales, would be handling the actual sale. And, then as time went on, I kind of took over more of an account management role. And then my boss, the VP of sales, left, and I've always, my entire time at Vision has kind of always been just, okay, what's the company need now? And then I kind of migrate into that role, and then either stay there or wait for somebody else that would handle it better, hand it off, and go find something else. So that was kind of what the company needed at the time. And then a few years after that, Abby, who had been handling our marketing, wanted to really focus more on operations and on SharePoint. And it just kind of made sense to put marketing under sales. So once again, it was what the company needed, so I took marketing under sales.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to my story. My story was, in a way, I was, obviously one of three partners in a business, and we had a fourth partner who was supposed to be our sales and marketing director, and he lasted like 2 months until we bought him out, and he was bringing, he was a good guy, and I'm still friends with him today. Brings in, we were approaching CN Rail, right? Here we are, three guys, right? Not too big of a prospect for us at the time. We need like 10 person on the gas company to get us going. So we decided to part ways, and we sat down, the three of us, and said, okay, who wants to do business development? And I said, well, Rob, you're kind of out of the picture because you're really an introvert. I said, Tony, you'll never sell a client because you're too tight. Like, we called Tony the head of the sales prevention department. And then of course I said, well, guys, I have a natural gift. I love talking to people. I can go. I love getting up early in the morning and staying late networking. So we decided that I would do sales and marketing. That was on the way. My transition was a little difficult though, because this is 2004. We were just hiring a bunch of techs, and I was still doing some technical work. And clients would always call, Stuart, can you just come and take care of this for me? And I would say, no, you know what? Mark is a much better qualified tech than I am. Just give him. And eventually they stopped calling me, and to the point where when I would show up, they would say, what do you want to sell me now?
Yeah.
So I knew I truly made that transition when they saw me as the sales role. But, tell me a little bit about Vision, Chuck, because you guys are a little bit unique. You touched on a little bit with Abby and SharePoint, but you guys are a little bit more than just an MSP.
Yeah, for sure. And, we always try to have an offering for whatever our clients might need. And it might be something that we can handle internally. If it's not, then we have a partner for it. So, SharePoint's one of those things that, we started getting, quite a bit of interest in getting some SharePoint development. So Abby kind of developed her skill set and everything, and we kind of started this SharePoint branch of the business. Kind of doing the same thing with security. Security's huge right now, and for about the past year and a half now, we've also been a managed security provider as well. And we're probably going to work on expanding that offering as well. Aside from that, our kind of main thing is the managed services. But then outside of that, we do a lot with the cloud too. We do a ton with Microsoft 365, a ton with Microsoft Azure. So we try to make sure that we're on top of whatever the latest technology is, that we learn it very, very well, experiment with it, get used to it, and then, we come out with it as an offering for our clients as well.
So I'm starting to see a lot of guys starting to make the move to like this so-called managed work. Is it managed workplace? I think the terminology. Are you guys kind of really looking at that now?
Yeah, for sure. And we even came out with an offering.
Workplace. That's it. Modern workplace.
Yeah, we even came out with an offering, kind of when all of this COVID-19 stuff started, to be able to allow people to very quickly get up and spun up to a point where they can basically have their entire office running in the cloud. So, using stuff like Windows Virtual Desktop, Microsoft 365, Azure on the server side of things. We're trying to help our clients be prepared for whatever may happen.
So you and I were talking before we started recording the show about Detroit and Michigan being in stay at home until middle of June now, probably.
Yep.
What are you seeing or what are you hearing from your clients? Are they starting to look at kind of reopening the offices, and will a majority of their workforce come back to the office, or do you think there'll be certain people saying, this remote stuff really works well? I think we're going to have people that work from home more often.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are going to go back. My personal opinion though is, this ability to work from home is going to have to be a thing moving forward. There are a lot of companies that think, well, if I can't walk into my office and walk down the hallway and see my server sitting there, it's not secure. Or if my people are at home, they're not going to be as efficient. They're going to be wasting time. They're going to be watching TV. So they tend to kind of go away from that, letting people work from home. But that's something that personally I think that we've learned from all of this, is that has to change. I think
it's the exact opposite. I think people are more productive at home.
I do too. I know we have been, for sure. I know I guess I can speak for myself. I know I have been, taking the commute out of it. I still have my own little office set up here at home. And, I think it's going to be something that people, as you're interviewing people to add them, they're going to be asking you, what's your work from home plan? Your clients are going to want to know, how are you going to be able to continue to support me if something like this comes up again? So I think it's going to have to be, I hate the term the new normal, but I think that's really what it's going to be is people are going to have to get used to this work from home, and to the point where, somebody wakes up and they're not feeling real well. Right now, they're probably coming to work because they don't want to waste a PTO day.
Or taking a sick day or something.
Right. But if they can just work from home and they don't have to worry about taking that PTO day, you're going to see a lot more people that are going to be a lot more health conscious like that, and that's going to ultimately, whether it's coronavirus or the flu or a cold, the more that you can keep the rest of your staff healthy, the better off you are. So
yeah, I know we are looking at we have like a handful of people in the office now, and a couple of them, because they just have really bad internet and there's not much they can do because where they live, the only thing they can get is HughesNet, which is it's adequate to get by, but you wouldn't want to hold a team meeting on it. It's not that good, but I see both sides of the equation. Like Paul, who is my tech guy, sits in the door, right behind that door there, and I can go and talk to him at any time about an issue. I kind of lose a little bit of that functionality with Teams. It's easy, hard to just say, "Hey, Paul, you can still do it. Hey, Paul, have a look at this," but it's not as easy just poking my head. Or if I hear him on the phone talking to a client, "Oh, is that Sean? Let me go talk to him." Right. So you miss that, but I think what you miss, you also gain in other areas. I know during the 8 weeks I was at home, until I was sitting at the dining room table for like 8 weeks, and then I finally got a desk, and then we started the renovations at our house, so I had to come into the office. But I mean, I only lived a mile and a half from the office, so it's not like a huge commute.
Right.
So it's handy, but I know you have a longer commute every day. So obviously, instead of sitting in a car for 30 minutes, you're probably nice to have that extra hour back in your day where you don't have to commute. And a lot of people are going to think that way.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I still don't have a long drive. It's 20 miles, probably about 35 minutes or so. So it's not bad, but it's not the same as being able to roll out of bed and walk 20 feet. So
yeah. You grab a coffee on the way, right?
Right.
So what, I always like to, talk about marketing, Chuck, because that's what you and I do. I mean, you started something a little, I would say it's initiative. It's, obviously what we're doing here and a few others have done. I don't see too many MSPs doing it. Tell me, what was the reasoning why you and Brian started the Detroit Tech Talk podcast, and how's it going for you so far?
Yeah, so a part of it was just fun, right? Get a chance to kind of take a break and just have some fun. We did, prior to doing Tech Talk Detroit, we had another one that we did a little while ago called Business and Beer. And what we would do is we would go to a brewery, we'd sit down with the owners, we would try their beer, and we would just talk to them about their business, what technology they use in it, how things are going and everything. But that kind of fizzled out because a lot of the brewery owners, a lot of them don't really understand business real well. And so it was kind of got into some difficult discussions. You had some that were really, really good, and they understood the marketing and the sales side of things as well as the brewing side of things. But then you had a lot that really only understood the brewing side of things. So that kind of fizzled out, and we've kind of always meant to get something going again because we did really enjoy it. It was a lot of fun, and we decided that we should just keep it really more around what we do. And so a lot of my career and a lot of Brian's career has been kind of working as a virtual CIO for all of our different clients. So we thought we could kind of bring that perspective to a podcast and talk about things that a CIO needs to worry about.
I'm happy you didn't call it the VCIO show.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's one of those way overused terms for sure.
Yeah.
We did one earlier today. We talked about career growth for techs, stuff like that. Last week we talked about co-managed IT. If you're a large organization and you're looking for ways to kind of save some money and help your staff be more efficient. We've obviously done stuff around working from home and everything going on now. We've had our Microsoft partner on, so just trying to keep it more that high level CIO type discussion.
And how are you finding people? Obviously the first few, obviously there's, and you guys, I think what you guys are like 15 episodes in now.
Yeah, something like that.
So obviously you're still in that awareness, getting the awareness out there. I've been doing this one now for 12. I was telling you earlier, there's a gap in there of 4 years we did nothing. But over time the number of subscribers go up. So I always love what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about is, don't expect great numbers the first 100 podcasts you do.
Right.
Expect to eat a lot of dirt before you get some good following. But all it takes is that one person to kind of stumble upon and say, you know what, I liked what these guys are saying. And it's kind of that, and I don't want to use the overused terminology, the new normal, because I think there's some words I'm never going to repeat again.
Right.
New normal in these challenging times, in these difficult times. I'm just tired of marketing that has that in it. But, as we go forward here and, it's, we start looking at new avenues, and this is what George and I talked about on our Eulistic HPC session a couple weeks ago, was, you have to experiment with new types of marketing and try to reach new audiences. And there is a segment of the population there who like podcasts, and I think audio is the next big area for growth for marketing. And so you guys are definitely on the. I don't know if there's any other Detroit MSPs doing what you do.
I don't believe so. And we kind of come at it from the standpoint of everything that we can do. Just kind of throw everything out there, right? And hopefully somebody will find something that means something to them. So, with the podcast, we enjoy doing it. It's fun to do. Hopefully somebody will hear something in every one of them that they go, oh, okay, I didn't know that before, or that makes sense, or that helps me. That's really the drive behind it. We don't expect that it's going to lead to, an influx of clients or anything like that, but it's fun to do. It's educational, and hopefully it helps somebody.
What I like about your guys' show too is you mix some local events around the technology too, because I've heard a few episodes now where you get talking about definitely when the hockey season was on, episode 1 and 2, and you guys are starting those ones in hockey. You talked a little about the Red Wings, and you talked a little about downtown revitalization in Detroit. So you talked about a lot of. So it's not all technical. No, is that on purpose?
Yeah, it is. That's kind of what we said going into it. Is let's try to keep it. We try to kind of do like a segue beforehand where we just kind of talk about what's going on. In our lives, around the area, whatever it is. If there's something going on in Detroit, we're going to talk about it. And then we get into whatever the topic is for the week, and then we, usually we'll end with a little bit of kind of more just generalized talking as well. Just, I think a part of listening to a podcast is kind of getting to know the host, right? And so I think that's really kind of what leads to that. Is it's not just the technical piece, but you kind of get to know the host a little bit too.
And what I like about it, because obviously everything I kind of revolve my world around is around SEO. It's got, it's just another property out there for you to get found online when somebody's Google searching something.
Right.
Yep. So it's just another. It's just like, that's why I take a copy of this, put it on YouTube, and it goes on our blog Talk Radio, and I write an article and put it on our blog. It's all aimed to find that findability factor. And eventually you will get people calling you and say, hey, I listened to your podcast and I really like what you had to say. Could we arrange a meeting?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I say, if somebody hears something and they find it educational, then great. That's kind of the goal of it, is not so much driving revenue or anything like that. If it leads to that, that's awesome. But more so just trying to give some good, helpful content.
And now you're a little bit like me, Chuck, where you're a little bit more of an extrovert.
Yeah.
Not every MSP is wired that way. So what recommendations can you give them for somebody who wants it, but it's not naturally gifted? I think, I guess I answered my own question. The first 100 shows, you're not going to get a huge following anyways. That's a good time to cut your teeth and get all your, your ums and ahs. I say ums and ahs a lot, as I do this. I'm not polished. I think that's what makes it authentic. Yep. Is that we're not polished. You're sitting in your green office there, and I'm in my office, right? It's a natural environment. As people expect that. I think, guys, you look at the news today around all this Corona stuff, people showing up on CNN or Fox News in their, their kitchen. I think it'll be accepted more and more. But what would you tell somebody who's interested in getting a podcast started? What platforms, what equipment would you recommend?
Yeah, so I think, a big part of it is exactly what you just said. You have to be okay with the occasional, and that took us a couple of episodes to get used to. Like we were cutting up the first ones to get rid of any of those ums and ahs and any of the parts where we kind of started laughing or something like that, and then we kind of went, like, why are we taking this stuff out? Like, this is.
Have you ever seen the football draft or the football fantasy football podcast? Those guys and ah and laugh all the time. So yeah, it's natural. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you say, it makes it natural, and that's where we kind of went, like, what, let's just have fun with it, sit down. We do almost all of them in one take because we don't worry so much about that. Obviously, if there's anything big, then we will cut it up and stuff. But for the most part, we just kind of let it roll. Aside from that, it's always, obviously the big stuff is having good equipment. So when we were in person, we had all of the setup that went into a mixer, with the microphones that went into a mixer that we could record on a SD card that we could then take and put onto a computer and all of that kind of stuff. Since we've been remote now, we've been doing them through Teams. Myself and Brian got a couple of good mics that are USB mics that plug in, so that the sound quality is still there. Obviously we try our best to avoid any background noise, but I got 2 dogs downstairs. Sometimes they bark and you can hear them, and oh well. But I think it's just stuff like that. But just being okay with it, and then I think when you're not that natural extrovert and social person, it can be a little bit difficult. But I think if you look at it from a standpoint, because a lot of MSPs are started by techs, right? And a lot of techs, what they do care about is helping people.
Yeah.
And so if you can look at it from that standpoint of, I don't need to be extremely outward and super extroverted or anything like that, but maybe I can provide some information that people will find helpful. It kind of gets into that natural tech feeling, right? Because you're helping people.
Yeah, what I invited. Same thing. I got this handy mic here that I have one at home at my home office too, and obviously I just use the camera on my iMac, which seems to work pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. I think the quality of the equipment is you have to have something plugged in. You can't use the PC or MacBook microphone, right. or even some of my episodes I had my earbuds and they weren't that good either.
Yep.
So I had these mics in the closet at the office forever. I called Amanda one day. I said, Amanda, when you come over to my house one time to drop the mail off, can you bring one of those blue microphones? And I want to see if it still works. And lo and behold, it worked, and it worked like a charm. So I started using them, and I use them now for my regular Teams meetings as well.
Yeah.
And and I use Microsoft Teams, and I record on Microsoft Teams, and it seems to work fairly good. Now I have Dean in my office who takes the video of this, and he'll put B-roll over top of certain things. And let's say we're talking about Detroit like we are right now.
Yep.
He'll take an aerial B-roll of Detroit and spin it around and show some cool stuff. Or if we mention a book, we'll say, hey, put a picture of the book right here, right? And put the picture of the book right there. So he's pretty creative that way. But we also take the raw audio, and I use a service called onlineaudioconverter.com. Upload the video file from Teams, it converts it to an MP3, and then we upload it to our podcast network. We use Blog Talk Radio. What are you guys putting yours on?
Oh goodness,
or is Brian taking care of that?
No, it's Sarah.
Oh, Sarah.
I don't remember. I know it, but I don't remember what it is. It's one of the main ones.
There's tons of those things out there. I like Blog Talk Radio. $39 a month is pretty cheap for the basic one. That's all you really need. I don't have thousands and thousands of subscribers, so
right.
So it works out good. Anyway, so that's great, and I think Chuck, that's really the next phase of the marketing world is expanding the digital, because you can put this on your LinkedIn, your Facebook. You can throw it on your website like you guys do. So there's lots of application for this type of service. And again, as you're working up, when you guys in Michigan can start going back to the gym,
right?
There's lots of people who listen to podcasts while they're working out.
Yeah.
So you never know. That's what I say. You never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. And again, I learned a lot by watching guys like Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff like that on YouTube, really. And he has a podcast now, and that's what I realized that all you need is one person to make it all worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And I've had numerous people call me and say, I found your MSP show podcast, and I wanted to talk to you. So your guys, episode 15 or 16, whatever you're on now, you guys are you got many years of work. But again, it all takes is that one person to make it all worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing I always recommend to people is, there's a book, The Go-Giver, from Berg.
Great book, yeah.
Yeah, my favorite business book by far. And, really it's just all about just being willing to help people and kind of put yourself out there. And so, that's kind of, I think, where a lot of it comes from too is, if you think about it like that and just think about it like, can I just do this and provide some information that might help somebody? Don't worry about if it's going to turn into a client, or don't worry about the amount of time you're going to put into it and all of that kind of stuff. Ultimately, it'll all work out and it'll generate something somewhere down the road, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Bob Berg is a very good friend of mine, so it's nice that you mentioned. I'll make sure we mention him on the podcast and give him a shout out for it. I'll have to tell you a Bob Berg story though. So I think it was earlier this year. I was on a cruise out of Galveston before all this COVID stuff happened, and we were going to Cozumel and Jamaica and Cayman Islands. And I was in the cigar lounge on the ship because it was one of the last Royal Caribbean ships that had cigar lounges. And I was sitting down talking to this gentleman, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but Bob Berg's name came up. So he showed me a picture of him and Bob Berg, and I showed him a picture of me and Bob Berg. I'll put it on the video here if I can find it. When I was at HCG years ago. And so I messaged Bob and said, hey, Bob, I'm sitting down with your buddy here. And he messaged the same. And Bob was just flabbergasted. Here we are, two guys sitting in a cigar lounge in the middle of the Caribbean Sea talking about him. So, but that's just the way the world goes around. And, and by the way, here's a little tip. If you talk to Bob, he'll come on your podcast.
No, I'll do that because I am friends with him on LinkedIn.
Yeah, he will do it. He's done it for me a few times. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to volunteer his time, but if you ask him nicely, I'm sure he'll do it. Yeah, yeah, super nice guy. And again,
he is.
We could do a whole show on the Go Giver because it's a great story. If you haven't read it, go get it. And
then even after that, I read Go Giver Sell More. I want to read the other ones. I know he's got the Go Giver Leader and all of the they're all just fantastic books.
Yeah, I got books on my desk here like, gee, what's this one here like. 1 minute marketing plan. It sits on my desk. I'm eventually going to read it one day. And I got all these books here. This is my favorite book. I don't know if you're a right winger or a left winger, Chuck, but if you're
I'm neither.
You got to read this book. That's Mark Dice's book. It's a fun book to read. Anyway, so last minute tips, Chuck. I know there's a lot of MSPs out there who I hear it every day. Stuart, how do I get more leads? How do I get more? That's what I need. I need more leads. Now I think what you're telling me, Mona, it's more about practice those Go Giver principles, and that will come in your podcast and everything that you guys kind of is aligned with that. So is the answer to be more because I find MSPs, not want to say this in a negative connotation, but I find a lot of them are very closed off and they don't want to share. They want to share, even though their secret sauce is the same as the secret sauce that you guys do and the other guys do.
Yep.
I just some call it Kaseya or Lab Tech or some other tool. But what would be your recommendations for MSPs that really want to start, from a marketing and sales perspective? And hiring Listic is not an answer. But what can they do?
Yeah, I think ultimately you do everything that you can, but you have to have a marketing plan. You have to see the value in marketing, and you have to keep doing it even if you don't see immediate results, because with most stuff in marketing you're not going to see immediate results. It's going to take time. You redo your website, you're probably not going to see anything coming from it for 8 months, right? Because it takes time for everything to get going with Google and all of that kind of stuff. So for us, we kind of look at it from a standpoint of what's everything that we can do, obviously within a budget, but what's everything we can do. So, we do a ton of different things when it comes to marketing. We do the podcast, obviously we do our website, we got AdWords, we got SEO, we have billboards out there now. We are doing basically everything that we can that fits into the budget. And then, just basically making sure that we provide really good service, and we get a lot of referrals as well. And I think, kind of to your point, be open to talk with other MSPs. And, I've sat down and had lunch with, quote unquote competitors that are 10 miles down the road, and we'll talk about business. I don't have any problem with that. Like you say, we all do the same thing. We might all do it a little bit differently, but there's nothing that I do that makes me stand out that you don't already know about, right? So it's all in our marketing if it makes us stand out. So you can go to my website and find everything that differentiates me from you. So why not just sit down and talk about it? I think you have to be open to working along. I always call it friendly competition. I mean, we've helped people get jobs with our competitors when we didn't have roles for them, but they were good fits. It's just, kind of that Go Giver mentality. Just work with people, be nice to people, try to help people out, and ultimately, everything will work out to your benefit and everybody's benefit.
One more podcast question, because it just hit me. How do you come up with your material? Like, what you're sitting there and you say, hey, what are we going to talk about this week? I mean, you mentioned you had Arctic Wolf, you had Microsoft. I think having clients on, having peers on, and having I'd love to have, if you invite one of your competitors to come on your podcast one day, like that's all, I mean, to me that's all. I think that's all good stuff because I think people, and I'm a big fan of document versus create. So if you can document somebody else's story, that just makes good content for you. But I think if you're looking at starting a podcast, and you're stuck with content. Obviously, you got your wealth of knowledge you have in IT, but also bring in other people from outside of your company, like your accountants or your lawyers or somebody else in the community. Is that what you guys are looking at?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we started it and we kind of, we picked a theme, right, around that CIO type discussion. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of sat down during a lunch and we brainstormed, the first 15 topics or whatever it was. And honestly, a lot of those we still haven't hit because other stuff comes out. So generally what we do is, we sit down every Tuesday and we start the discussion with, all right, what do we want to talk about? Is there anything out there in the news that we should hit on? Is there anything going on in Detroit that we should hit on? And we just talk through it until we decide on a topic. So we recorded today, right? We recorded at noon. From noon till probably 12:20. We were throwing around ideas and deciding on a topic. We decided on, let's talk about career paths for techs. And from there, we just jot down a couple of bullet points that we want to make sure that we hit, and we hit record and go. So it's kind of how we do it. We have a list of stuff, but then we did start saying, we think we could add a lot of value to this if we start bringing in other people. It's great, people are hearing our viewpoints on things, but let's reach out to Arctic Wolf, who's a real expert in security, and talk about security. Let's reach out to Microsoft and talk about, Microsoft 365 or their work from home strategies, stuff like that, to really just kind of get more broad viewpoints as well.
Gee, you get the CIO or GM to come on, that would be a really good one.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Anyway, Chuck, before we sign off, just give us a quick rundown of Vision Computer Solutions. Again, I know you gave us your history, but websites, contact numbers, just in case somebody from Detroit's listening to this podcast and wants to call you.
Yeah, so we've been in business since 1995. I've been there since 2004. It's funny, I'm looking for a car right now for my daughter who's going to be turning 16, and it hit me the other week that when I started with Vision, my wife was pregnant with her. So
wow.
It's been a while. So I've been there since 2004. We specialize in managed services, managed security, SharePoint. Really, I'd say our real kind of specialty is helping businesses achieve their goals. And that's really everything that we look at when we bring somebody on board. We do an assessment, and we don't say, okay, well, you don't have our preferred brand of this, so we're going to replace it. We say, what are your goals in your business? Where do you see yourself in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? What issues you're dealing with today? We look at their current technology. If it meets all of those things, great. Let's just keep going with what you got and move forward. And we start building that roadmap. If we find something that, they say, well, if we were to go down, we have to be back up in 2 minutes, and we look at their backup solution and it's going to take them 8 hours to get back up, we're going to go to them and say, hey, there's a disconnect here. Your expectation doesn't meet the system you've got in place. So either we need to change the expectation or you need to put in a new system. So it's really how we look at everything, is just, making sure that our client is getting exactly what they expect, whether it's from their technology or from us as a technology partner.
Great. And vcsolutions.com is the website. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot the website. Yeah. www.vcsolutions.com. We're on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn.
Make sure you check out the Tech Talk Detroit, or the Detroit Tech Talk. You keep getting it mixed up.
Tech Talk Detroit. Yep. And you may see our billboards out there. Right now, they just say thank you to our healthcare workers, but different freeways in the Detroit metro area, you might see our billboard out there as well.
Great, Chuck. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your friendship and being a great colleague over the 18 months or so now. I think it has been. Something like that. So. Thanks again, and folks, tune in for our next MSP show. We always have stimulating guests with great stories on how to market or sell, or even just the MSP community in general. So, Chuck, thanks again for doing this, and we'll see you on the next podcast, everyone.
Thank you.